everyone! Today, we'll explore how motor skills are learned, how we measure learning, and key concepts like the law of practice and skill transfer. But before anything else, I'll ask you first, how do you define motor skill learning? Because for me, learning is a relatively permanent change in behavior due to practice or experience. It differs from temporary performance improvements, which may not indicate long term learning. So, first, let's talk about how is learning defined. So, learning is a process that leads to a relatively permanent improvement in performance due to practice. Unlike performance, learning is not directly observable but inferred from consistent improvements over time. So, meaning, learning is not something we can see right away, but we can notice it through improvements over time. It happens when we practice and gain new skills or knowledge. For example, a beginner struggling to ride a bike may eventually master balance and coordination through practice. Next, how do performance and learning differ? Performance is temporary and can be affected by fatigue, motivation, or environmental conditions. Think of performance as how well you do something right now. It can change based on how tired you are, how motivated you feel, or where you are. While the learning is a long-term change reflected in consistent performance even after a break. On the other hand, learning is a long-term improvement. Even if you take a break, you still remember the skill and can perform it well. For example, a golfer hitting a great shot once does not mean they have learned the skill, but consistently hitting good shots over time suggests learning. Okay, so next, how is learning measured? Are all improvements in performance indications of learning? There are three methods to measure learning. First, the retention test. The retention test assesses how well a skill is retained after a break. Second, transfer test. Evaluate the ability to apply a learned skill to a new context. Last, the performance curves. Show improvements over time but may not always indicate true learning. But not all performance improvements indicate learning. Temporary factors like motivation or favorable condition can cause short-term success. What is the law of practice? The law of practice states that more practice leads to greater improvement, but gains become smaller over time. So, the law of practice suggests that as you continue practicing a skill, your performance improves, but the rate of improvement slows down over time. This happens because, number one, the rapid initial gains. When you start learning something new, your brain and body quickly adapt, leading to noticeable improvements. For example, a beginner learning to play the piano will see significant progress in a short time. Second, the diminishing returns. As you become more skilled, further improvements require more effort and time. The same practice that once led to big gains now results in small refinements. A skilled pianist, for instance, might spend hours perfecting tiny details that a beginner wouldn't even notice. Last is the play-through effect. Eventually, you may reach a point where practice leads to very little noticeable improvement. To keep progressing, you need new challenges strategies or techniques to break through the play-through. These principles applies to many areas, including sports, academics, and professional skills. It highlights the importance of consistent, deliberate practice rather than just repetition to keep improving effectively. Power law of practice. Early practice results in rapid improvements. Later, progress slows down as one approaches skill mastery. Is there an upper limit to how much a person can learn? While there is no strict limit to how much a person can learn, biological and physiological factors play a significant role in skill development. Factors such as genetics, cognitive ability, age, and experience can affect the speed and extent of learning. For example, younger individuals may learn motor skill faster due to greater neural plasticity, while older individuals may require more time but can compensate with experience and strategic learning approaches. However, during skill development, a person may experience a skill plateau, where progress slows down and further improvement seems difficult. This is a natural phase in learning and doesn't mean mastery is impossible. To overcome a plateau, learners can try new training techniques, increase practice intensity, seek expert feedback, or take breaks to allow for mental and physical recovery. For instance, in sports, an athlete stuck at the same performance level might break through by adjusting their training routine, improving their diet, or focusing on mental conditioning. In academics, a student struggling to improve their math skills might benefit from switching learning methods such as using visual aids or interactive problem solving. Is it necessary to continue practicing a skill once a desired level of performance is achieved? The answer is yes. Without continued practice, skills can decay over time due to forgetting or skill degradation. This happens because the brain and muscles gradually lose familiarity with the skill when it's not used regularly. The longer the gap without practice, the more effort is required to regain proficiency. However, overlearning, practicing beyond initial mastery, helps reinforce retention and make skills more automatic. By continuing to practice even after mastering a skill, you strengthen neural pathways, making it less likely to forget and easier to perform under pressure. Overlearning is especially useful in high-stakes situations, such as emergency procedures, competitive sports, or public performances, where quick and accurate responses are essential. In short, regular and deliberate practice prevents skill decay, while overlearning ensures long-term retention and confidence in high pressure. For the last question, when does learning one skill benefit the learning of a second skill? There are three types of transfer. First, the positive transfer. This happens when learning one skill helps in acquiring another skill that has similar movement patterns or concepts. The previous skill makes it easier to learn and perform the new one. For example, if you know how to play tennis, learning badminton will be easier because both sports involve similar racket swings and hand-eye coordination. Second, the negative transfer. This occurs when an old skill interferes with learning a new one. The habits from the first skill may not fit the requirements of the new skill, leading to confusion or mistakes. For example, if you are used to driving a manual transmission car and then switch to an automatic, you might instinctively reach for the clutch or try to shift gears, even though it's unnecessary. This can slow down your adaptation. And the last one is the zero transfer. This means learning one skill has no impact, positive or negative, or another skill. The two skills are completely unrelated, so neither helps nor hinders the learning of the other. For example, learning how to swim will not affect your ability to play the piano because the movements and muscle coordination involved are entirely different. Mastery of motor skills is a journey and consistent. Purposeful practice is the key to long-term success.